All right. Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. Evan, how we doing?
Can't complain. Going well. Outside of the temperature kind of being bouncing around, freezing to not as freezing, but besides the point, can't complain.
Yeah, it is a little chilly outside, isn't it? It's been a little cold, but we're pulling through. Christmas holidays already here. And the Milwaukee Bucks are delivering a few gifts of their own as they are now winners of 3 straight. Able to won 3 games this past week against the close wins, I might add, to the Brooklyn Nets, the Orlando Magic, and the Atlanta Hawks. So we're going to get right into those games. First, we're going to talk about the Sunday's very close back and forth win to the Brooklyn Nets. It was so close. It was almost, I would say, I might add, frustratingly close because neither team, it felt like, couldn't get a stop, especially the Bucks. But, obviously they were able to pull out the win. 118 to 113. Just a couple of quick notes here. Giannis was able to drop in a cool 34. BP dropping in 23. Gary Trent Jr. dropping in 20. Middleton's obviously his second game back, but I think the real story of this game was Dennis Schroeder, who is not even on the Brooklyn Nets anymore. He just got traded yesterday.
Yeah, to the Warriors.
For, I believe, DeAnthony Melton and a second-round draft pick. So, I guess, what did you see in Milwaukee's very close, very hotly contested game against the Brooklyn Nets?
Like how you kind of said earlier, again, a lot of back-to-back. I know the Nets kind of got to a 12 or 13 point lead later into the game, but the Bucks again able to erase it quite quick. I think one of the biggest nervousness I guess I had for this game was we've already lost to the Nets, and I really didn't want to lose again. But it really took a Giannis 34-point game to kind of push us over. Lillard wasn't the best that game, only taking 7 shot attempts, all 3-pointers, but a good, I guess, kind of bounce back game with the bench, especially with Bobby and Gary Trent, being able to kind of carry them off with the bench scoring, again, both dropping 20-point plus games, especially with Bobby being able to not only take 10 shot attempts, but go 9 for 10 and shoot 5 for 5 from the 3, I feel like was one of the most pivotal players on the team outside of Giannis that game, just because he really kept us in for the majority of the game, being able to hit, again, almost all his shots. But again, just kind of frustrating on the other end, seeing Dennis Schroeder have 2 career highs this year, and both of them were against the Bucks. So again, that seeing him kind of go for, I guess, not really a whole lot to the Warriors kind of is annoying, just because that would have been, he's always been a guy that I kind of wish the Bucks would have kind of picked up in the last few years, just because I really like how he plays. He can shoot the ball, but he's not only reliable on that. He's a good passer. He averages quite a few assists. Just an all-around good guy. But yeah, we just got cooked by him on their end. It was kind of a Giannis versus Dennis Schroeder face-off, which is something that you don't really see often, or won't really see the comparison, just because I think they both had 34. Yeah, they both had a 34-point game, and he was quite efficient. But yeah, if it wasn't for those two, it would have been a lot closer. But again, near the end, the Bucks were able to kind of pull away and kind of play the free throw game near the end after the Nets kind of missed some very pivotal game-tying threes and go-ahead mid-range shots. But Bucks were able to, again, pull ahead, literally to the last few possessions to pull out that win. But again, a win is a win, just not the best win, I think, kind of overall. But we'll take whatever we can get. Nets were a lot better than I kind of thought they were going to be this season.
Yeah, and that's a credit to their coach, Jody Fernandez. He's kept that team competitive, and it felt like they've kind of washed away the stink of the Harden, Durant, Kyrie Irving era. This is kind of who the Nets are always supposed to be. Just get a collection of young talent that you can kind of grow and develop with. And they have that with guys like a Dennis Schroeder, even though he's not there anymore. They got that with guys like it at Nick Claxton, with a Cam Johnson, with just it looks like just like a lot of unheralded guys on the roster, right? So you get Dorian Finney-Smith, you get a Ben Simmons, you get like a Jalen Wilson, who watching him in Kansas, he was really really good. So they just have a lot of unheralded guys, but they play hard. This team is competitive, and this team in the past couple of years has given the Bucks fits. And especially since when you go back to that first matchup of the season, they got absolutely, like, I don't want to say boat race, but like they got outplayed in in the exact kind of same format. They were able to pull this one off. But if you remember going back to that rough stretch that Milwaukee's had to start the season, like Brooklyn came back and won in Brooklyn on that Sunday in like the first, I believe, month of the season. So it's just a team that's, and I think why they give Milwaukee fits is because this team is a lot younger than the Bucks are. And, unfortunately, like Milwaukee is susceptible against younger teams. Young, fresh legs, Milwaukee is susceptible to lose against them because these don't have, I just don't think they have the energy to be able to consistently hang with those guys for, 48 minutes of an NBA game. And especially since they just don't have the wing defenders that I would say right now Brooklyn has. When you look at Gary Trent's a good defender. But outside of that, it's like, Giannis and Lopez are good, but those are more or less guys that you look for, like, to stuff shots away or to cover half the floor. But it's like, I just don't know if they have like in the front court right now, it feels like Gary Trent is really the only guy who you could kind of consider your stopper, but they don't have like a Drew Holiday to kind of, like it just feels like now they have to kind of rely more on Giannis and Brook Lopez to kind of take away half the floor because they just don't have that guy in the backcourt.
Yeah, and like kind of like how you're saying with the Nets, kind of being like one of their biggest, not biggest, but again, a lot of the younger guys. And I feel the same thing with the Pacers and the Hawks have always been an issue. Even the Hornets in the last few years, obviously, like even if the Bucks win, it's still a lot closer games. But we always saw the Bucks always owning the Pacers and the Hawks for quite some time, and now kind of seeing them catch up. And again, it's really just you don't need the big name guys. You just need the guys who are a lot younger, and again, who are going to be able to outrun Brook Lopez, which I feel like in this day and age is a lot easier to do with anyone else on fast breaks typically. But yeah, no, just kind of again, this is a good win to kind of get back on that win streak after kind of dropping the last few before, especially with that Celtics game. But this was just one of those games where it took almost all the effort it got from every guy contributing. Some contributed a little more than others, and again, it was just one of those gritty wins that we, again, obviously want to go in our favor, but again, it's always hard to see it be to a team that we kind of expect to pummel every time.
Yeah, and again, like I said, both teams couldn't miss. Kind of looking at it here, Milwaukee shot 57% for the game, and Brooklyn shot 50. So like neither team could miss, and neither team could get a stop at the defensive end. And Milwaukee even shot solid from three. They shot 15 of 31, which is almost 50%. So that is pretty good. Brooklyn's able to go 16 of 35. So again, this was very much an even matchup throughout the entirety of the game. It was just Milwaukee was able to make one more offensive play more than Brooklyn. So, a good win. I think probably the only concerning part for Milwaukee was probably the 16 turnovers, and I
Mhm.
feel like that kind of continues to be a recurring issue. Um, Milwaukee just feel like in the offensive end they just give away the ball too much, just not hanging on, not being as crisp offensively with the ball as they should be. And that's understandable because, Giannis, with Giannis's usage rate being what it is, he's going to turn the ball over. Lillard, with his usage rate, he's going to turn the ball over. So honestly, Milwaukee's high turnover percentage shouldn't be a surprise to anyone because when you get two guys who have the ball in their hands as much as those two, like turnovers are going to happen. So that's one of those things Milwaukee just kind of has to deal with. It is good to have Chris Middleton back, even if he's kind of gotten off to a slow start. Having him back in the fold, even if he's just coming off the bench and even if his minutes are limited, just having that presence back on the floor, it does a lot for this team and it sets up so many things.
Yeah, no, it's especially obviously when we get into the Hawks game, just kind of talking a little more about Chris Middleton. It is nice again have that presence back, but just waiting for him to kind of again find his groove a little more. It's like you said, it's been a really slow start. Some games are a little better than others, but again, whatever we can do to get him back to obviously wanting him to be 100% healthy isn't really going to happen anymore, but just got to see him play at the best that he can and just kind of hoping that whenever that comes, that it kind of helps out throughout the rest of the season. But yeah, I kind of expected this to happen. I obviously hasn't played in quite a while, really since the playoffs last season. But yeah, no, it's been a slow start, but I kind of expected that and just again kind of hope that in the next few weeks he kind of picks up a little more.
Yep. So moving on to the next game, um, and another NBA Cup game, which obviously it's been that way throughout. Milwaukee able to squeak out a win against the upstart Orlando Magic, 114-109. And kind of watching this Magic team for the first time this year, they're good. They're really, really good. And I know it sounds like a Captain Obvious statement, but I didn't expect them to continue be be as impressive without Paolo Banchero, who should be back relatively soon. I heard probably around Christmas.
Yep.
And then they just lost Franz Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
He had an oblique injury as well. But no, this team fought Milwaukee till the end. And really, it was off the performance of Jalen Suggs, who's really starting to come into his own. He dropped in 32 points and is looking like the high lottery pick that Orlando drafted a couple years ago. So what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against Orlando?
Obviously, it went in our favor as a win, but if you're a fan of basketball, I think overall this was a really good game to watch. Obviously, it was a little frustrating without being this close without Paolo and Franz Wagner. I kind of expect it to happen just because every time I feel like the Bucks are playing a team without their top two best players, they always find a way to make it close. But again, you can't really count out the Magic this year, which is kind of weird to say. Just in the past, they haven't really been this top tier team that we've seen in the past, back in like the Dwight Howard days. But yeah, no, outside of Jalen Suggs, it was just a really good overall game. I feel like obviously him and Giannis were like the primary guys taking the most shots. But with the Magic itself, obviously wasn't a high scoring game, so there wasn't a lot of points being scored. They have a really good bench. I feel like that helped them out a lot. Our bench really was just Bobby. Everyone else were 0, 6, or 9 points. It was primarily our starters who kind of put in the most effort. With that being said, that was really just Giannis and Lillard, but being able to get that contribution off their bench, especially with their top two guys out, is able to kind of keep them in these games. Obviously, they're 17-10 at that point in the game, or at that point in the season, 2 games prior, but adding back those top two guys, especially with Paolo, obviously Franz Wagner is up there as well, but losing your superstar guy in Paolo, again, being able to kind of keep up with the Bucks, obviously it kind of goes either way with whatever team they're playing, but you're playing a quarterfinal cup game, you're playing as hard as you can in order to kind of keep going and playing in there. But I was thoroughly not, I wouldn't say surprised, but being able to see the game go this close, and again, very similar to the Nets game and very similar to the next game we're going to talk about with the Hawks, again, going down to the last few baskets. And again, the Bucks, again, being able to kind of hold off, play the foul game near the end, and be able to hold off. Again, the Magic took some interesting shots near the end, which kind of went in the Bucks' favor. And again, being able to close it out. Now, they did have a bit of a lead later in the game that the Bucks kind of gave up super quick, but I guess it's more of what the NBA is like in this day and age. But yeah, no, I was thoroughly impressed and just really, I'm glad the Bucks won, obviously, but being able to watch this game, it was super entertaining, engaged the whole time. I feel like it was a really good like playoff match, playoff vibe. Obviously, it's kind of not really playoffs with the cup finals just because they're two drastically different things, but the atmosphere of everyone playing in the cup, wanting to play for the win, 500K, it just makes basketball a lot more interesting, whether it's the Bucks games or not. Thoroughly impressed with this game and just kind of glad that it went in our favor.
Yeah, I agree with you. The NBA Cup has been like a slam dunk idea for Adam Silver. These games have been exciting. The matchups have been, I would say, invigorating. And this is why one of the reasons why the NBA has kind of been leaps and bounds. Not for popularity, but in terms of ideas and stuff like that. I feel like the NBA has kind of been leaps and bounds ahead of the NFL and the MLB. It just feels like Adam Silver keeps coming up with these very innovative ideas that originally people are like, dude, I don't get it. Why would you do that? But then all of a sudden everybody's like, God, I love the cup. It's, the games being in Vegas, it makes it even more that tune-in factor. I just think the NBA Cup's been super successful. And, these matchups have been just great to watch. Especially with this Magic Bucks game. This was a game that came down to the final few minutes. And especially seeing Jalen Suggs come into his own, I thought that was, for me, that was like fun to watch. This has been a guy who's like fought through injuries the past couple of years, and to kind of see him like take on that lead role of sorts without Boncaro being in there. He made some huge shots, but Magic wouldn't be where they were if it weren't for the contributions of Batadze, who looked really, really good. He 12 points, 14 rebounds, but there were times where I was like, this guy is dominating down the low post. Anthony Black from Arkansas, he was pretty good. But he was also pretty good as well, dropping in 17 points. But in the end, it's like Milwaukee has two things that Orlando doesn't. Giannis and Lillard. And part of the reason why the Bucks acquired Damian Lillard is because of the shot he made to kind of give him the lead for good. He is just a big time shot maker. And this is the guy you want to go to at the end of games. Because, without him, it's just Giannis basically having to try to do it by himself. But I don't want to discredit like guys like AJ Green, who even though he only had 9 points, he made a crucial three down the stretch to kind of pull him close. Again, everybody, and like I said, Bobby Portis, like he's been much maligned, much criticized, but BP has been, he's been rock solid the past few games. Giannis almost dropping in a 40-piece. At this point, whatever Giannis does just does not surprise me in the slightest anymore. I just think I just think that I'm running out of adjectives to describe him because just the things he can do on a basketball court that I think it's going to be very hard to replicate that. Like the closest comparison I could come up with is Wemby, where it's like the shoot stuff coming up on the basketball court like that. Like that would be my closest comparison to him, where in terms of like just unicorns, just absolute unicorns. And look, and the other thing I want to bring up too is like Milwaukee. It's like Orlando was like Milwaukee really didn't come alive until the third quarter because Milwaukee probably struggled throughout the first half. they only had about, you know, they had about, they were down 36-20. They were down 33-25 in the first quarter, and then they were able to go to 35-26. But I think there were some points where I feel like Milwaukee was lucky to pull it within that margin because I just don't think the offense truly was starting to click until the third quarter.
Yeah, and the third quarter, the Bucks kind of like alternated quarters of when they wanted to score. It went first and third were horrible, second and fourth were amazing. But yeah, kind of seeing the third quarter, obviously they kind of picked up a little bit just because they only scored 20 points in the third quarter, but they held the Magic to only 13, which was again huge because the Bucks then got outscored in the fourth quarter. So being able to kind of defend them well in the third kind of led them to that overall win near the end. Just because again, if you score 18 points in the third quarter for the Magic, the game is tied, which is again a crazy statement to say just because 18 points I feel like teams are scoring in 6-7 minutes at most. But yeah, no, just being able to not only just rely on scoring, but they were able to rely more on defense that game, or that quarter I should say, the most, just because the fourth wasn't the best defended. But it was just an interesting second half because I felt like the game was just so very similar to the Nets game. It was so close, again, back to forth. No one I felt was really missing a lot of shots, or one team would go on a run and then the next team would go and they would again alternate. Yeah, no, it just again came down to the last second, just a lot of good back and forth frustration. I feel like watching the lead go up and then back down, up and then back down, but again, very excited that they were able to hold on and then obviously advance into the quarterfinals as well, or the semifinals, I should say.
Yep. So we're gonna go ahead and just talk about that game next. Obviously, big win, big win for Milwaukee, able to pull it out against the Orlando Magic. 114-109. All right, moving on to the next game. Another hotly contested quarterfinal game. I believe it was quarterfinal, semifinal.
Yep. Semifinal. This one.
Semifinal. Yeah. Okay.
The
I always
championship.
get those mixed up in my head. Yeah, this was another hotly contested game against a team that has given Milwaukee fits in the past, the Atlanta Hawks. Milwaukee was able to sneak past the Hawks 110-102 in last night's semifinal game to move on to the championship. This was kind of similar because it felt like Milwaukee got off to a fast start in the first quarter. Unfortunately, Atlanta was able to kind of, made some shots. They have some guys outside of Trae Young who can really contribute. But I really think Milwaukee, the first half I think it was good. The third quarter especially for Atlanta. Because heading into the third quarter, Trae Young only had one field goal made. That ended pretty quickly.
Yep.
Trae Young really started to get rolling. Obviously he's able to take a 34-27 advantage in the third, but I think fourth quarter is like when Milwaukee really came alive. And, Atlanta was starting to miss some shots, and they were able to pull off the win. So what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against Atlanta?
Obviously, again, another crucial game that came down to the last few possessions where I feel like the last 30 seconds takes like 20 minutes. Again, very overall good game. I think one of my biggest frustrations about it was the amount of time I feel like the Bucks went without a field goal. I was able to watch really more of the fourth quarter. But again, following on my phone, a lot of it was like first field goal in 3 minutes, first field goal in 2.5 minutes. I felt like they went in so many spurts of just not scoring, and also kind of also being able to hold the Hawks to not really scoring as much in that time frame, which again is one of the more frustrating parts because you hold the team to not score and then you yourself don't score as well. But I just felt like that happened more often than it should, where they're just going multiple minute spurts without scoring a basket, or almost going 10, 11 minutes without scoring a three-pointer. It was kind of frustrating to see how well like they've been shooting the three-pointer in the last few games, or really like in that win streak. And then I feel like it slowly started to die down a little bit. They only shot 31% last night, where they're shooting again 40 plus and making under 20 of them. Only shot 45% from the field as well. I shouldn't say only, but then only shooting 31% from three again was a little frustrating, just because we've seen the team shoot so well as of recently, and then to watch it kind of dim down back again. Bobby 0 for 3. Gary Trent 0 for 4, didn't even make a basket. He had one free throw. Chris, 1 for 5, not the best shooting game for him. Lillard took 14 3-point attempts. Torian 2 for 7. So a lot of just ones and twos for these guys, and missing more than half of their shot attempts just in general. But again, able to kind of pull it down near the end, like you said, in the fourth quarter, just because they did not have the best third quarter defensively. But again, it kind of came down to Trae Young just chucking up shots and hoping they go in, and kind of went in the Bucks' favor, being able to rebound. But yeah, no, this was, again, another good game to watch, but it could have been a lot more entertaining if the Bucks could have just played a lot more consistently throughout the game, instead of just, I'm going to score here and I'm going to wait a little bit and just kind of hold off on scoring, just because, again, you could have came out to bigger leads at times. But hey, again, a win is a win. They're going on to the Cup Finals for the winning the trophy, winning that $500K. But yeah, no, just another game where we were just able to pull it off near the end. We got I wouldn't say got lucky, but just kind of able to finally close out a game after not being able to close out the last few that they've lost.
Yeah, and again, like, like the one, there's always one play that kind of sticks out in my mind. Giannis's chase down block. Like that was, or maybe not. Wait, was it a chase down?
It was the final
Capella, was
block.
it the Capella?
Yep.
That I might have been. I honestly, if I'm thinking about it, that might have been the game against Orlando where he had like 2 chase downs against Orlando. Okay, I remember the block against Capella on the alley-oop.
Mm-hmm.
Legitimately, I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I think that was the play that really set Milwaukee's. I think that really set Milwaukee into motion. Here's why: because I think by that point, Milwaukee was, that going back and forth a little bit. And I think, if Capella completes that dunk, I think Atlanta has all the momentum in the world. But Giannis coming up with that block was insane. Even if they ended up turning the ball over on that possession, I just think that galvanized them to help. I think that galvanized Milwaukee to win the game. That's what I think. And again, Trae Young was rolling, and you expected him to, because he was really the only one contributing offensively. He scored 35 points. I think the next closest guy was Jalen Johnson at 15. So it's one of those things where, Hunter and Johnson had 15 points, but, I don't know. I just think that block kind of just turned the tides for Milwaukee.
Yeah, very 2021 finals-esque. The dunk on DeAndre Ayton. I was waiting for the edits to do the side-by-side, and it came out as fast as they could. But yeah, no, that was super pivotal. Again, being able to kind of knock down that momentum with the Hawks and turn it into momentum for yourself. Which, again, those last few possessions with the Hawks, just kind of chucking up 3-pointers or the blocked alley-oop, again, turned into extra possessions for the Bucks. Whether you score or not, it just takes away the chance for the Hawks to score in that situation. Again, pretty much, I wouldn't say the dagger for the Bucks, but again, like how you said, it changed the momentum and was a huge pivotal point for them itself. And again, kind of looking back at Trae Young, again, didn't shot 50% from the field, but got to the line 17 times. And I know he missed a free throw later in the game, which again is extra points that just kind of go in the Bucks' favor. But yeah, outside of Trae Young, very similar to the Magic game itself. Again, we were just kind of hoping that one team ends out a little higher near the end, and again went into the Bucks' favor, because again we really didn't have anyone stick out on our end outside of, I guess you could say, Giannis and Brook. Lillard again took 21 shots, but hey, I'll take whatever they can get near the end. But the block was definitely, that was like literally when I was able to turn on the game. I would say like 2 minutes prior I got to watch. So I'm glad I was able to to turn it on when that play happens, because I always hate looking at social media and seeing a play happen that I was not able to watch live.
Yep, and I think another person who was really got going in this game was, even if he may not show up on the stat sheet, AJ Green, nine points. He, he's been showing up. I don't want to say he's been shooting the ball well, because I think he had 2 air balls this game, but again, I just think his willingness to take these shots is something to admire, because Milwaukee's 3-point percentage in this game, not the greatest. Not the greatest. It really wasn't the greatest the last 2 games. I believe they went 14 of 45 from 3. Not exactly something you want to see. Shooting 45, only making 14. But again, able to pull off the win. Able to do enough defensively. Trae Young got tired kind of, towards the end of the game there. So, and I think they just kind of was like, all right, let's just let Trae Young do all the scoring, and everybody else just see what else you could do. So, yeah, good win for the Bucks, 110-102. Obviously moving on to the Cup game versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Before we get to that, I want to talk about the emergence of who is now being coined Derry Bird, AJ Green, whom heading into the season, it was a guy who, was like, all right, he has a quick release. He could shoot the ball a little bit, not afraid to shoot. But I guess this season, what has AJ Green done for you to improve so much?
I think he's gotten a lot more comfortable shooting. I felt like last year it was just, with the amount of time he was able to play, the minutes that he got, it staggered a lot, where he would play a lot more one game and again really matchup based. But I feel like he's a lot more comfortable with his shot. The ones that go down, even the ones that don't go down, are still very close. There are some good misses. Obviously, there's some where he airballs, but I feel like he's got more comfortable with his shot. He's also just playing his role. He's not a guy who is expected to score 15 to 20 points off the bench. He's the catch and shoot guy. Kind of want him to develop into like a Kyle Korver type player, where you're a spot up shooter, your role, you're here to only shoot threes. He makes a couple mid-range shots, but he had that stretch where he shot like over 50 straight 3-point attempts before he shot a 2-pointer this season. But again, he's getting into the role of being that spot up shooter, and he's finding a lot more spots where he feels comfortable shooting. And I feel like that's been like something that's developed a lot more as of last year to this year. But I feel like the spot that's really going unnoticed is his defense. We've talked about his defense quite a lot the last few games. Even earlier on the season, or there were some games here or there last season, especially when he was playing the Nuggets against Jamal Murray. I just feel like he's been going under the spotlight with his defense. He's not like a guy who's blocking shots, getting a lot of steals, but he's forcing guys to either, one, take a bad shot because he's gotten them to a point where can't really dribble much more, or again, he's forcing guys to pass after guys aren't able to get around him. It's usually like closer to like the mid-range spot, but I feel a lot more comfortable with him being on the floor and not being just an offensive liability like some of the guys off the bench pretty much are. Bobby Portis is very offensive more than defensive outside of rebounding, but being able to trust him on both sides of the floor, I feel like has been a lot more appreciative this year and going a lot under the radar, just because he's not getting the recognition around the league that I feel like he deserves with his defensive play. One of his bigger games, again, being the Bulls this season, guarding Zach LaVine, and being able to do that quite well. But I'm excited to kind of see it, because again, he was the guy I rooted for a lot last year. I really like his style of play, and just being able to know that he's a guy who we can throw out there for defense now too is a huge plus for the bench as well. And again, going into his career, this is only his second year, but hoping that as as he goes down his career through the next few years, that he's able to just kind of emerge as a better shooter and have his defense be more known throughout the league.
Yeah, and like you said, that thing is like Eric Name actually did a thing about like what has AJ Green done to improve so much defensively. I just think he's putting in a lot more work. And that's why you're seeing Pat Connaughton not playing as many games this season, because I just think that AJ Green he's just been playing a lot better. And Doc Rivers isn't an idiot. He's seeing what we're seeing, where it's like, I get it. Pat Connaughton brought energy, but it's like he just wasn't playing as well. Like, he wasn't playing as well as he should have been. And AJ Green was able to take his minutes. I believe he's fourth in the league in 3-point percentage, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I heard that stat somewhere. But AJ Green's just been, he hasn't been afraid to shoot. Has been defending really, really at a really, really good level. And that's all they needed. Because normally standalone shooters or spot-up shooters normally aren't like the best defenders. That's kind of been the knack against most of them. And I am generalizing because you don't expect a spot-up shooter to play defense. But, hey, if you're going to play for Doc Rivers, you got to play some defense. And, I'm not saying you need to be a lockdown defender, but you at least have to try a little bit. And that's what AJ Green's done. And that's why he's cutting to Pat Connaughton's minutes. And that's why he's, the right guys are finally being played, because, Milwaukee need to do something to save their season. And, the current collection of talent, current players that were playing, it wasn't working. And I'm talking mostly about like Pat Connaughton and, that's mainly been it of a guy who, it's like, well, why isn't AJ Green getting it? Mostly Pat Connaughton and Andre Jackson Jr. He's finally starting to get some run, and I am excited to see that, because that was a guy who I just thought that he just kept coming in and giving Milwaukee a spark. So at some point it's like, okay, like, stop having him give us a spark and just have him ignite it, so now the right guys are being played, and Milwaukee has turned their season around. So I'm excited to see that for the most part.
Yeah, I'm just excited that, again, kind of like how you said, the guys who are deserving of minutes are finally getting the minutes that they should have been receiving, I feel like, the last few seasons. Just, again, under Mike Budenholzer, again, he didn't really like to play the rookies. Adrian Griffin, again, he occasionally played Andre Jackson Jr. And then once Doc Rivers came in, he kind of stopped, but then again, now this season he's playing a lot more. So I'm glad that they're starting to see the emergence of these guys and the impact they're having down the court. And again, hoping it kind of helps them down the road. Andre Jackson Jr. could be a very reliable player in the playoffs. AJ Green could be a very reliable player in the playoffs as well. Again, if he's able to hit the shots and be able to defend at, a very, I wouldn't say like super high level, but even a mid-tier defender is someone who can still make an impact in the game on the defensive side. So again, I'm glad, and I hope it continues to develop throughout the season, just because it's starting off well, and I feel like there's ways to always improve, and I'm hoping that it goes well and again can be used as a lethal weapon in the playoffs.
All right, let's move on. Last topic of the pod. Milwaukee is playing in the Cup game Tuesday night against the Oklahoma City Thunder. First off, I honestly can't remember the last time these two teams have played. But I guess to kind of provide some context, the Thunder were able to knock off the Houston Rockets in last night's game to move on to the championship game. So, I guess, what do you see matchup-wise between these two teams?
It's going to be a really good game. Obviously, the Thunder's record is light years better than the Bucks at 20-5, but I just when I see the Bucks play, especially in the Cup, they know what they're playing for. They know what they're trying to win. This is not just a regular season game. This is again to win the NBA Cup. This is to get $500,000 to some of the younger players who aren't making that much in the NBA. They know what they're playing for, so I feel like they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder just because going into it, they are most definitely the underdogs against the Thunder. With Jalen Williams, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, with all these young guys. So it's going to come down to, again, kind of how we talked earlier with the fast breaks and scoring points off turnovers. It's going to come down to, are the Bucks going to be able to defend that if they don't give up as many turnovers that lead into those fast breaks, just because I feel like that's been such a killer for the Bucks this season. Now, even though Chet Holmgren's been out for the Thunder, they're still playing at a high competitive level. Guys are stepping up who need to. They have Alex Caruso now, another high-level defender for them as well. Obviously, I want to say the Bucks are going to win because, again, it's a bias against the team that I cheer for. I feel like the Bucks they have a chance to kind of pull away with it. I think it's going to be exactly how the last two have gone. I feel like it's going to be a very close game the whole time. It's going to come down to the last few minutes or even few possessions in this game, just because I know the Bucks are going to come out and fight a lot harder than people expect, just because, again, they have something that they're playing for, and they're not just going to kind of give up on playing hard. I guess it's not in Giannis's mentality. He's going to come out and play as hard as he can because he's going to want to win no matter what, whether it's a regular season game against, I don't know, the Wizards, or it's the NBA Cup final against the Thunder. He's gonna show 100%. So I'm excited for this. It's gonna be a really good game to tune into, and I'm excited to kind of watch. Not only just kind of watch the Thunder play, but just kind of see what the Bucks are able to do. Especially knowing that Taurean Prince and Darvin Ham are undefeated in the NBA Cup, winning it all last year, not losing, and not losing a cup game this year as well. So it'll be a really entertaining game. Obviously, I'm going to say I want the Bucks to win, but it could go either way. You never know what's going to happen. It's basketball. And again, just that neutral ground, I think, also plays in favor. They're not playing in Milwaukee. They're not playing in OKC. They're playing in Las Vegas, so there's a very neutral floor. Fans are going to come from everywhere around the country, but it's going to be a good game, and I'm excited to watch it. And it's still 2 days away, unfortunately.
Yeah, and still kind of looking at OKC, I feel like the one thing they have to try to do is limit the effectiveness of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Because it feels like if he scores and he has a good game and other guys kind of contribute, they usually win those games. He had 32 points against the Rockets. Lou Dort had 19. Isaiah Hartenstein had 21. So I feel like if you try to make the other guys beat you and limit the effectiveness of SGA, I think Milwaukee has a great chance of winning this matchup. And I honestly think that is the key, because to put it mildly, SGA is the head of their snake. So if you just cut off the head of the snake, I feel like you can beat I think the Thunder are very beatable. Just gotta limit Shai, and that's easier said than done, because I watched him a little bit yesterday, and he was like, "Wow, this guy is talented." and again, it feels like the Thunder are still very much under the radar because, it's all the way out in Oklahoma City. It's like, who's gonna watch like Thunder basketball? But let me tell you, that team's got some dogs, and Chet Holmgren not being there, it hurts him a little bit, but it doesn't hurt him as much because they still have a really good team, and that's a credit to Sam Presti, who I would say is probably like one of the best GMs in the NBA. But look, it's going to be a good matchup. One team has star power, the other team doesn't. So it'll be, it'll be interesting. Some dogs against star power. So let's see which team's going to come out on top. I'm very curious about this matchup. So I guess for you, what would Milwaukee's key to victory be?
I think they're just going to have to be efficient. Whether that's, again, whatever it takes to win, whether that's Giannis scoring 40 plus points, Lillard having 8 3-pointers, whatever they have to do, it's got to be efficient. We can't have, if Giannis is going to score 40 points, everyone else has to be doing something in order to contribute. It can't be a 40-point game from Giannis, but no one else does a thing. It's just Giannis taking the heavy shots. I feel like what really is going to matter is, can they defend? Obviously, they have Hartenstein now. Brook Lopez, again, with that matchup, you got one guy who is significantly younger than the other, so it's going to be a lot of who's going to be able to kind of battle out more. Obviously, Brook Lopez isn't the biggest rebounder, so it'll be more of Giannis on that end point, but it's just going to be, are they going to be able to catch up? The team is young. They're fast. The Bucks aren't. They're not young. They're a little fast. Kind of depends on who you're talking about, but it's just got to be efficient. We can't play sloppy basketball. We got to box out. Again, I say this almost every time. I'm surprised I haven't mentioned offensive rebounds today, but that's just one of those things where if you're forcing a team to take a horrible shot and you still give them the ball back to give them one more shot, whether they make it or not, it still is a waste of a possession for you. You lose that chance to score. So it's really going to come down to boxing out and being able to kind of score efficiently. Don't take shots that you don't really need. If the 3-pointer is not working, stop shooting them. Go to the paint. I hate seeing the Bucks be in the bonus with like 8 minutes left and they don't attack the rim at all. Damian Lillard is one of the best free throw shooter in the NBA, so you might as well take that to your advantage. Giannis is not one of the best free throw shooters in the league, so if you're going to choose to kind of attack the rim, kind of know who's going to be the one going to the line. But yeah, otherwise, it's really just going to be that box out and being able to stop any takeaways, any turnovers, or fast break points. So it seems so simple, but when you watch it happen, it adds up over time.
Yeah, and again, like kind of unaware of the stats, I'm going to take a wild guess that OKC doesn't have a player on that team that draws fouls to the clip of a Trae Young, a Giannis, or a Lillard. And the reason why I bring that up is because that Hawks-Bucks game, it just looked like toward the end, like Trae Young does what he does best, which is like draw a lot of fouls. Giannis does what he does best, draw fouls. Lillard too. So like, if Milwaukee can get like those bigs, like a Williams or a Hartenstein, if they can get him in foul trouble early, I do like their chances. Milwaukee does also have a tendency, though, especially Giannis, to leave points at the line. Giannis is, I believe, he's shooting 61% from free throws this year. So not great. And he's still getting fouled a lot. It's just he's still not converting at the clip that we want him to.
A lot of 1-for-2s.
Yeah. So, if Giannis can, and usually in championship level games, usually he shoots relatively well from the line. So if he can do that, then I do like Milwaukee's chances. It's just he has to convert like most of his free throws. It's just sometimes he just doesn't do that. So, do you have anything else?
No, again, we got the game on Tuesday for the championship. Then they don't play again until Friday, back to the regular season, where they'll have a back-to-back against the Cavaliers and then the Wizards. So it'll be a very quick turnaround because then they have another game on Monday. So only one game in between, 3 games in 4 days. Again, they've played the Cavs really well this year. They haven't won, but the games that they have played against them have just been bad losses, I feel like, in the end. So that one's away, so kind of can they take one in Cleveland? But the home game against the Wizards on a back-to-back, they should be able to do. I really hope, just because of how bad the Wizards are playing this year. But yeah, no, if we're talking their next 3 games, being the Cavs, Wizards, and Bulls, and then the Nets on Thursday, I feel like their best case scenario, obviously besides 4-0, is 3-1, and worst case is you go 2-2. But yeah, no. We'll see how Tuesday goes. I'm excited to talk about that one the next game, hoping they win. But yeah, no, I'm excited to watch them play on Tuesday and just kind of see how that game goes because again, that's going to be a great matchup, Thunder against the Bucks. So we're rooting for the Bucks, obviously, and we'll see what happens after that, and then getting back into the regular season, see how guys go as we slowly approach the new year, where basketball really starts to get competitive.
Yep. So. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. And we'll see you guys next week.